Study 1, Set Free from Sin, the Sacrifice of the Lamb. As far back as you can imagine, before the dawn of time, God was there calling worlds into existence and filling the universe with his living presence. Like a mighty river, God's eternal spirit swept forward, engulfed this present moment, and surged into the future. His presence encompasses all time, fills all of eternity, and vibrates in every fiber of the universe. In one glance, he comprehends all things past and present to 1,000 ages from now. All of life is in him, flows from him, and returns to him again. He is from everlasting. He was there in our past, he stands in our now, and he's waiting in our tomorrow. When God created this jeweled planet Earth, it was a riot of color, texture, and architectural wonder, filled with fragrance and the most delicate perfumes. It was and still is a thing of exquisite beauty. At the sound of God's voice, light appeared out of the darkness. Supernovas burst on the scene, and galaxies went whirling and spinning into space. And the heavens were spangled with stars of all colors, sizes, and magnitudes. Great sea monsters began to swim in the deep, and the seas and the ocean swirled and teemed with speckled, striped, mottled fish of every color and shape. Birds of brilliant hues and unusual forms took flight, and dived and soared in the dazzling blue skies above. Animals of every description came leaping, walking, crawling, swinging, and springing out of the earth. They had long necks, short necks, long tusks, big trunks, flowing manes, thick fur, and funny ears of all shapes and sizes. The voice of the Lord sounded again and caused the deer to calf. The earth teemed with wildlife as each animal gave birth and brought forth their young after their own kind, to be nursed and cuddled at their sides. One can imagine what it must have been like to have been on our planet in its infancy, to be outnumbered by the wildlife of sometimes monstrous proportions, and to be engulfed at night in the cascading beauty of the diamond-studded heavens, a scene which many city dwellers are unfamiliar with in this day of electric lights that blot out the view. Must have certainly have been overwhelming to the early tribes of men. As they looked at this, the abode of God, the ancients cried out, "Who is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him?" Psalm 8:4. God created all of this magnificent beauty with just the sound of his voice. But when God created man, he formed him in his very own image and breathed into him his very life. And all this was because God's greatest desire was to have family to share his likeness, to have someone he could dream with and share his life, love, and plans. The whole created universe was a giant birthday gift for his beloved. Then God gave the race of man, both male and female, dominion over the earth and the privilege of being co-creators with him in the future of his planet. On the sixth day of creation, when God made man and woman in his image and gave them the breath of life, he placed them in a beautiful garden that had 4 rivers running through it and filled it with his blessings. The garden was furnished with every variety of plants and trees that were good for food and beauty, and the ground was covered with very pure gold and sparkling gems of every hue and radiance. In the middle of the garden, God had placed the tree of life, and beside it he placed another tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God gave Adam and Eve permission to eat from every tree in the garden, including the tree of life. However, there was one tree from which God commanded them not to eat, for if they ate from it, they would die. In that command, God gave his beloved ones a choice to whether to obey him, love him, and live, or to disobey him, not love him, and die. It was never his will to force man to love him or serve him. He wanted Adam and Eve to be free to choose to love him from their own heart. There was one more thing that he did. Before the foundation of the world, outside of time, he provided a slain lamb to heal the breach that he knew would inevitably come. Revelations 13:8.